Good day, ladies and gentlemen. The mortgages and debts all around the world have actually ended. The mortgages and debts have ended wherever there is a central bank that deals with fiat currency. Full stop. The announcement itself is life-changing, and because it's life-changing, share it with everybody. It's just the general public, like with most things, is not aware of what is happening. In Canada, for example, they are inspiring the entire world to bring their governments, as it were, which are not their governments, to an end. And I'll be speaking about that more on this. Before I do that, there is something that you need to know about the money system, what was already reminded. So what I'm doing is I'm reminding you of how the money system works, and listen carefully, okay? Zeitgeist, in 2008, I had already explained it to you. So I'm going to explain it to you in more pictorial ways so you can understand what is happening to your money supplies, which is critical and would be a presentation in itself. But I need to get this information out. In the US, Australia, most of Europe, Canada, the mortgage systems have already ended, and the debts and etc. have already ended. It's just that people don't know and what to do about it. And when they do find out it is ended, it's already too late because they've gone and contracted themselves again with these debt pledges. Okay? In the Corona period, there are no debt pledges. The Federal Postal Court deals with that on a daily basis. So I'm going to give you two examples now, okay? You see this £5 note. Every one of you sees it, okay? I'll change the angle so you can see it. Do you see the £5 sign there? Do you see that £5 sign? Do you see it's got a double bar on it? Okay, it's got a double bar just there. Not the conventional one that you're used to. Let me see if I can get closer and you're able to see it. That double bar was there during the 70s. Here it is again. Okay, I'm pulling in, pulling out. Pay full attention to what I'm saying. That's a £5 note that has a double bar. That double bar signifies the value of this £5 note is actually backed up by silver sterling. And to signify that, they had a real strip of silver in the paper embedded to say that it is redeemable by that silver. Once again, I may be having technical issues, so I need to probably just check on the other end. So that's why I'm picking up my cell phone. I'm not being disrespectful to you guys, but I get a lot of interference. That is that. So that bar actually holds and says it has value. And then they replaced it about 35 years ago, or close on to 40 years, I would say now, with a single bar. That's a £5 note. It's made out of plastic. Do you see it's got a single bar on it? Okay, it's there. A single bar. That single bar means that it's totally fiat. We're not backing this up by anything except that they hope they will not get caught out on it. Okay? That's what they're hoping. Now watch the trick that they're going to pull, which is actually on a document called Modern Mechanics, Banking Mechanics. I will put the link of it down on the page of this presentation. Okay? You see this note is backed up by silver. This is not. Yet they are from the same country. Both of you, all of you understand this. what essentially is happening, since they dropped this, all the money that's being printed, okay, is eating away at this money. So let's imagine that you now have this £5 note. On the back of this £5 note, the Bank of England has been printing more £5 notes, thereby devaluing the note that you hold. So that means the new notes that they are printing is actually eating away and borrowing on the notes that are already in your accounts, that's in your pocket, until, and here's the monetary system openly telling you, is that until they have completely eaten up everything in your saving, and until it's zeroed to about 99 point something percent, which we are now at the end of its tether. So let me paraphrase again. The money that you hold in your wallet, okay, the money that you worked for has the value of, say, of £5 worth of bread that you're able to buy. And that £5 would be a loaf of bread. A loaf of bread, let's imagine that. Since you've got this in your pocket and you put it into one of your deposit accounts, that gives the Bank of England, through the all powers of attorney, the ability to print another £5 note without having any proof of work. When they do that, what it's doing is that it's lending. This £5 note is adding and lending value to this £5 note. And when it does that, your £5 note loses more and more value. And the modern mechanics of banking and money system says that we will continue doing this until your money is so worthless, as it is in so many countries, that you need large sums of it to be able to buy even a loaf of bread. So now you can't even buy a slice of bread with it. Check your inflationary measures. When the Federal Reserve came into existence in the Bank of England, this one, let's imagine, had £5 worth of silver. Now, you'll be lucky to buy a small quantity of silver with it. That's how much it's lost its value. It's actually lost 99% of its value, because over a 99-year period, the money in your pocket that was printed by the Bank of England, the Federal Reserve Bank in the US, and various other countries, simply lend on it, thereby devaluing the note that you have. And this is what the modern mechanics is by the own publications of the Federal Reserve Bank. You have known this for over 10 years. Zeitgeist explained it to you. And I'm reminding you that it's important that you know that the money in your bank has devalued to virtually nothing, to the point where you're going to have to redeem it for something. Okay? I will show you another trick that they play. This is the $10 US note. Look at it. Look at it. Okay? I'll get closer. Look at it. Everybody sees it. Okay? Can any one of you tell me where it's got the dollar sign on it? Can anybody tell me where it's got the US dollar sign on it? Or any Republican sign? Most Republicans have dollars. Can any one of you tell me, can you see the dollar sign on this note? Because quite literally, you will have to trust in God to believe that this has the value of $10. It doesn't have the dollar sign on it. It has dollars on it, but dollars can be what? Singapore dollars? Any dollars. It could be the dollar of another country. You don't know. The point that I'm making is that these instruments are fraudulent. They are in 100% fraud. And they are cannibalizing on your savings and on your homes to buy themselves a ticket out of the money supply that they have created that has unstabilized the world itself. Anything that unstabilizes the world in that manner, where that level of fraud is taking place, needs to be taken out. That's why the Federal Postal Court can cancel out your mortgages and debts. That's one of the reasons why we're here. I, as a plenipotentiary judge, is here educating you. If you want any of these documents, email me, okay? For the European, can you tell me where you can say that's a €5 note? Can any one of you tell me that is a €5 note? Look at the euro sign that is on the opposite side, sitting there all by itself. And the number is sitting all by itself over there. One is not linked with the other. Examine your money. This is your money, okay? And yet it is offering you nothing because it's saying the trust is in God. It's not in the people. It's not in the banks. It's not in your pocket. It's actually somewhere else on a different realm. Look at the $10. Look at the note. Look where it's all joined up. They're so separate from each other that they are just words standing by itself. Where it's got $10 here, it's all written as one line. That's like me writing my name as all one line. You understand? It's like writing a sentence all in one line. You only presume and assume that it actually means anything. And they've got caught out on this fraudulent mechanisms. As a result, they're trying to start wars to get away. It's not the American people that is starting the wars in the Ukraine or wants to. They're saber rattling to get you to pull your attention away to the fact that they're going to try to steal your homes. And I will explain that to you. The idea is for them, and they're doing it and have been doing it for nearly 10 years, through BlackRock, they are buying up as many homes as they can using what? These fraudulent instruments. Thereby putting you into another debt pledge called a mortgage. When they do that, they intend to rent back your own house with these fraudulent instruments to add value, further value to their criminality, to their lies. Because what's the instrument of a lie? Is to get somebody to believe that lie. Once you have believed the lie, you can monetize it. And that's what this is. You believe in the lie, and they monetize that lie. And now this money is going to cannibalize on the rest of the money in your pocket, in your homes. And once BlackRock has bought up your homes, say they paid you like $1 million for it, the $1 million 10 years ago is not the $1 million of today. It has already lost 50% or more of its value. And they are so rapidly cannibalizing on the US dollar, the pound, the euro, that its worth is going to be so little. Inflation is exploding. Deflation, inflation, everything is being thrown at you. Distractions after distractions. Full stop. One of the most peaceful people in the whole of the Americas, including Argentina and the various other countries, Canada is the most peaceful. I should say one of the most peaceful that we know of. Because of this, can you imagine what they had to go through for a peaceful group of people to come out in their, quite literally in their hundreds of thousands, in the freezing cold, to sack their government? Because of this, the Canadian people can come to the Federal Postal Court and we will teach you the mechanism how to sack your government. And they are not your government. And I'm going to describe what that is right now. The government that you have comes under what is known as corporate governance, under corporate governance. And all corporate governments can only govern fellow corporate governances or corporate instruments. Full stop. Your corporate government that is pretending to be your lawful government, that is government by the people, for the people, by the people, is actually the instrument for all the companies and the banking system. In other words, the banks are the ones that set up your government. And they also voted in to give you the illusion that you had the vote, and I will prove 100% you don't have the vote, that your votes has never counted, and they never counted your vote because your vote has always been cast for you. And I'll explain more. Your government was set up by other corporate instruments to govern corporates only. They cannot govern men and women. Do you understand this? As a result, the language that you are using is that they got you to believe that you are a person. That's why your Supreme Court says all persons must vacate that bridge. It's a person. A person is a persona. It's a corporate instrument. It's the way that you describe and distinguish a corporate instrument from a man or a woman. They got you believing that a man is a person. They got you believing that a woman is a person. It is not. It is an instrument of a a corporation. You understand this? Of course you do. Your Supreme Court, the so-called presidents and all of them, can only make governances for corporations, not for men and women. Their sole purpose is to act as the beneficiaries for men and women. In other words, they're essential service providers. That includes into your entire court system. But through the fraudulent conveyance of language, the toxification of the language, they got you to adopt and buy things as a corporate instrument as well as a nom de guerre, which means a dead person, a dead something. And that is called a mortgage or a credit card, called a debt system or a sin system. Now, examine the imageries in your mind. Just listen to what I'm saying. If I use the word slave or slavery, what are the images that you have in your mind? The images in my mind is of a so-called African person in shackles brought to the Americas to work as slaves cutting sugarcane, and so with the Jamaican countries or islands. That's the image that I have. I'm assuming that you have similar images. So when I say slavery, the immediate images that you have is dissociated from you because you are not part of that race. But in law, but in legal instrument, a slave means that you are bonded. You are a bonded slave. And that is an instrument irrespective of race. And those images are put in there on purpose so you don't understand and you will not grasp and you will disassociate yourself, dissonance yourself from the slavery system of bonded slaves, which today is called a mortgage, a death pledge. You have to be dead on paper and on verbal contract to be able to get a death pledge. So you have to prove to them verbally and on paper that you are dead to take up a dead instrument known as necromancy. Okay, necromancy. That is what your county coroner does. It practices necromancy. Coroner comes from the word corona. The word corona in Latin, in English, means crown. They are all one and the same thing. So for you people out there in the world, it takes only a pen and an autograph to show that you have your own corona and that you are not bonded as a slave. So when I use these words, already you are resisting me unconsciously, subconsciously, because the images go against the images, the words that I use go against the images that you have in your mind. And you provide that resistance to me. Hence, the programming by the media, which is an instrument of the banking. It is owned and it's an instrument of the banking, like the BBC, is to perpetually lie to you and put these false images in your mind. So when somebody like me comes along, explains it to you, the resistance factor by yourself alone is there, ready, waiting to push me away. That's how these people work. They are extremely toxic. You know that because they've endangered the entire planet and the billions of you. Full stop. I will give you another example. I blew the whistle as a plenipotentiary judge. I educated the world and my students as to what human rights is. Human means the different colors of man. It comes under the coloring of the law. When you color the law, that's a crime. Coloring of the law is best described as this. You are aware of Animal Farm, George Orwell. In there, the pigs write out the Constitution. All the animals write out the Constitution, which is the many species of men and women out there called color of man. You know, those people that behave like horses, you know, that are the lifeblood of a farm. Those people that are greedy like the pigs, as it were, that are symbolic. They get together and write a constitution. Once it's done, the pigs isolate themselves and begin to reconstitute, called amendments, saying some animals are now equal than others. Before, it was all animals are equal. Now, when the amendment comes in, is some animals are more equal than others. You are now put in a position where you have to prove that you are as equal as a pig to make that claim. You understand how necromancy works? You will have to prove that you are more equal than the other animals by proving that you are equal to a pig. That is how the toxification of language works. When the Federal Postal Court, banned and exposed the word human, Boris Johnson in this country, who was an actor for these extremely toxic people, came out and said, we're going to get rid of human rights. And the people that are so reactionary, say, no, you can't get rid of human rights. He has to get rid of it. But he wants to replace it with called individual rights. Individual rights is the individual word that you use. The word itself, the individual word, the word of individual, is used to distinguish one corporation from another. Do you understand? Like McDonald's Corporation is an individual corporation, and that word is used exclusively to denote and express those things that are particular and peculiar, if not unique, to one corporation to another. They're called individual rights. Okay, that's the right of a corporation to do what it does under a corporate charter. It has got nothing to do with living men and women. Living men and women don't have rights. They don't have rights. Whatever they say and do becomes that right of way. That's why it's inalienable. You don't need to prove your rights. You don't need to prove anything. Your autograph and your creator seal seals your word. That's why your word is your bond. Whether that's for slavery, for a mortgage, or to get yourself out of the situation that you are in. So what I'm saying is that the verbal contract that you are uttering day by day and reading through the media are all put there for you to verbalize yourself into the mortgage system, to get yourself into the system of sin called a debt. And so much of your education, if not all of your education, is all geared up for you to constantly verbalize that you are a slave, that you're going to get a death pledge, and that you are in perpetual sin, and that you are a slave, bondage slave, and that you have to perpetually protest against a government that essentially is a service provider for living men and women. That's how twisted it is. So you Canadians, you've shown us how to go about things. Pick up your pen, and the Federal Postal Court is willing to teach you how to do this. But you have to come to us. You have to come to us in your thousands, not in your dozens or so. Come to me in your thousands, and we'll teach you how to sack your corporate governance for betraying their charters. You understand what I'm saying? You will be tested for psychopathy because I will not be talking to narcissists and so on and so forth. Do you need to pay your way on this? Yes, you do. But it'll be nominal. It'll be nominal. We can do that for you. We can teach you how to get your corporate governances to be your essential service provider. What are they? Gas, fuel. It's called gas and electricity on demand. Banking on demand. It's called on demand. Transport on demand. Fairness on demand. Trust on demand. And it's always on demand. If you fail to grasp this, that it is you that dictates, you are the director of the corporate governances to provide that service to you because you are the beneficiary. But because they got you speaking and writing in cursive language, which is the language of the dead, called mortgages, they are demonstrating again and again, look, we are dealing with dead people that believe that the Prime Minister works against you. Hence, you are constantly protesting. Switch it around with a pen, and we're willing to teach you. But you have to come to us, and we can do that within 90 days. We can turn that around for you. Okay, but you need to come to us. Full stop. I've explained to you that for every single fact, let me give you another analogy. Let's imagine you have all of these corporate instruments. All of these corporate instruments, which are all acting in total lie, except this one. Even though it's, fictional language, at least it has something factual. So you've got the option to choose all these notes. And because you don't know the difference between a double bar on your note and a single bar, you might choose the one that you think holds the greatest value, which will be the $10 bill. But it's not a dollar, and hence you've just walked yourself into a corporate instrument, thereby robbing you of £5 of British sterling. You see, in the world of fiction and facts, ladies and gentlemen, I have only access to a small amount of facts, and that's all you need to navigate gold, silver, copper, Bitcoin. In the world of fiction, you've got the thousands of different notes that exist out there that are nothing more than instruments of total and utter fraud. For every choice, every 1,000 choices that are out there, my choice as a man that deals with the facts is usually one or two instruments out of the thousands that the world of fiction can choose from. So when I ban human rights as nothing more than the coloring of the law, controlled and administered in trust by the United Nations, they deal with persons under the coloring of the law. And look up the word coloring of title, under the color of title, under the color of title, as in undertaking. Okay, they all are dead instruments. It is incredible. I know, ladies and gentlemen, it is absolutely incredible to think that billions of people have been walked into it. Close your eyes and do this with me. Do you remember? I'm going to close my eyes, okay? Do you remember the days of Nelson Mandela in 1995 when he took prominence, as it were? Do you remember, how much tragedy that the South Africans had to go through and how much disgusting practices were taking place in that country? And yet, one of their favorite singers amongst the whites and so-called whites, so-called blacks and the coloreds, as it were, do you remember they used to try to call us colored? Yeah, what are you, white, black? No, they didn't have that. They had white or colored or Asian. These are all ways of removing your position as a man or woman. Do you remember those days? Go back with me, of Nelson Mandela and the so-called rights movement, of South Africa. How wonderful it must have been for that nation to see this guy called Nelson Mandela come up and give them the illusion that he is setting the nation free, giving people equal rights and so on and so forth, irrespective of race. How wonderful it must be to be bathed in ice water when you have been scorched by the fierce heat. How welcoming it would be to have a cold bucket of ice water thrown at you, with that level of viciousness that used to take place in South Africa. Hence, as a result, this thing called Nelson Mandela successfully, on the back of giving them illusion that he's doing something wonderful for the nation, walked and talked every single man and woman on that continent into believing that they are white South Africans, black South Africans, and that they are colored South Africans. In doing so, him knowing fully what he is doing, in doing so, he essentially removed their position as men and women and further sold them down the river, as it were, as bonded slaves. This is the mechanisms that these people use. And the disastering results of that type of hero worship is that this mechanism will be repeated again and again throughout the world until you men and women realize you're being lied to. Good men that do nothing. You know the poem. Look, ladies and gentlemen, your mortgages have already ended. The Federal Postal Court is able to deal with that. If you're able to deal with it yourself on the back of the things that I have released, help yourself. If you want to come to us, help yourself. You will be tested for psychopathy and narcissism because we don't deal with those subspecies. Is there fees involved? Yes, there will be, and we'll discuss that with you. Everything is accessible as long as you don't fall for the same tricks as the Indians did in India with Gandhi, when he played the same identical trick that is being played with you today, as Nelson Mandela did it, as JF Kennedy did it. These are all pseudo nonsenses there to walk and talk you into being perpetual bonded slaves. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to come to the use of the all powers attorney, all power of attorney. When you signed a document called a death pledge or a credit card, or opened up a bank account, or sent your children to school in the corporate schools, teaching them corporate instruments, talking and behaving like corporate instruments, what you have essentially done is you signed away what is known as an all powers of attorney. I've spoken to you about it previously. So please listen up, okay? These things that are paramount, there is nobody that I can find that is speaking about these things on the internet. You got to ask yourself why. Not because I'm clever or I'm the only one that's pushing myself out. It's not because of those reasons. It's because the level of control is so great that you don't get to hear about it. The noise that comes out of the internet is like 99% utter garbage created by the banks known as noise, white noise, black noise, background noise, to confuse you so you don't take up the position of that which is a man or a woman. The all powers of attorney, when you signed that, you essentially signed away your manhood and your womanhood to be that of a corporate instrument. In other words, to be exclusively an actor. That is like Anthony Hopkins saying that I'm no longer a man. I've completely withdrawn from being a man or having flesh and blood, but I'm going to go totally exclusively corporate and take up the corporate governances as my constitution. What idiot would do this? Unfortunately, the word is idiot. And idiot means the thinking of a slave. This is not to say that I'm insulting you. I'm not. Because I've been an idiot. Okay? I once wanted a death pledge so badly. I saved all my money to get myself a death pledge. This is very personal to me. See the word, how it resonates, personal, which means it's a persona. It's very heartfelt and unique to me, which we share. Yeah, that's the kind of words that I should be using. Because when I say it's personal, it means I'm part of a persona, back into the world of corporate. And they got us speaking so subserviently, so incorporated, that we keep talking our way into these death pledges. The all powers of attorney what it does, it also allows them to cast your vote for you. I'll explain to you. Let's imagine that you had 100 Apple shares and 50 Amazon shares and some shares with me, including what is known as internet time. When you signed away that all powers of attorney, you essentially told the attorney to do your stuff on behalf of you. Okay, do the stuff that needs to be done and anything else on behalf of you. In other words, they can censor this transmission coming to your IP address because you gave away your all powers of attorney. So they can do that through Google and YouTube, saying, hey, we don't want John in Canada listening to this. Can you block it on his IP address? Simple as that. Unfortunately, you did it to yourself. And that's true for everybody in the world. I don't have an all powers of attorney. I am my attorney in everything that I do. Otherwise, what's the point of it? Let's imagine now, as I've said, going back to the imagination, that you had those Apple and Amazon shares. And Amazon and Apple has written to you to say, we need your vote as to whether we should go metaverse, sorry about that, or just stay as Facebook. I know they're two different companies, but this is how it works. Let's say whether we should go into private or into the public. They wanted you to cast your vote. Your attorney has already done it for you, and on behalf of you, making the banks the beneficiary of your money. You understand what I'm saying to you? Amazon writes to you to ask your opinion whether they should go private or public, or they should create more issues of shares. You innocently say no, but your attorney has already put in the vote saying yes, issue more shares, and we're going to buy off of them. That's already happened. I will now give you another example. Your ears must prick up on this. The corporate governance that is there to provide essential services for you writes to you to say it's time to make an election called election time. Election is different from voting. In signing that, you gave away your ability to exercise your electricity. Electricity encompasses voltage, ampage, as well as watts, which is the consumption of the two, spelt with a W as opposed to V. And in doing so, they elected somebody on your behalf for you to vote for. Vote is a corporate instrument. And in doing so, you had a letter through the letterbox saying, who do you want to choose? We have selected 6 people for you on your behalf. In other words, you don't get to choose. We will choose which box you're going to. We will choose, and we will tell you that you have a choice of the 6 that we chose. You just have to tick the box. And you think that you have a vote as a corporate instrument because you have the ability to move in and out of corporate as well as men and women, electricity, and in voting. You have the ability to move into electricity called electoral, and you have the ability to move into a corporate instrument called a vote. And in doing so, you vote, say, Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, you think you're voting for. But the man that you turned the powers of attorney over to has already cast that vote on your behalf, which was beautifully, beautifully demonstrated by a man that you hate so much in the US called Biden. Biden did his very best to explain how the fraud explains. Donald Trump explained to you his very best to say it's fake news, fake voting, fake government, fake money, fake this, fake that. He went out of his way, and it was demonstrated to you as a Shakespearean play that the entire system runs on total and utter fraud that you are willing to participate in. They did that, and yet you hate Biden. I love the man. He did his very best to say, I got in this position because your vote does not matter and it does not count, because you signed away your all powers of attorney. So anybody and anybody holding that instrument can cast your vote on your behalf. We just provide a ostentatious ceremony to give you the illusion, the banks do, create the illusion that you are voting and your vote counts. They explain to you, your goddamn vote don't mean nothing to us because you even surrendered that. When you signed away your all powers of attorney, you gave the Federal Reserve Bank, who bought up those things called a bond. Yeah, they purchased your bond. Your word is your bond. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. What does it say? In God we trust. God is a legal instrument. That's why they don't call it the Creator. Yeah, they keep these words so very separate as not to trespass and one on the other. God is a corporate instrument. It's on there. That's why your Bibles have copyrights on them, because they are corporate instruments. As shocking as those things are, it is time for you now to mature up to be able to deal with that. You see, the way that these people work is to get you in a position of religion, which means no people. So you remove your faith. And they do that by telling you the lie and the truth at the same time. That's why the Bible is still one of the greatest sources of information. And it's also one of the sources of great confusion. The ability to tell a lie and a truth at the same time confuses the hell out of people. One such word is like an agent. I'm an agent of the FBI. Your spirit will read that word, agent, as being no gentleman. It means no gent. Because A as a prefix means what? It means amoral, which means something without a moral. Yeah, A as a prefix means no. That's why they are able to rob you of your faith in books and in faith and so on and so forth. So when you read those Bibles, the Quran, the Bible, the Bhagavad Gitas and all these things, it confuses you, just as it confuses you with these instruments. Yeah. Which one of your children was given the knowledge to choose correctly? Who? Did you teach your children to select that which is correct? Did you do that? So how would they know? And if this is all piled together like a book, and let's call it a Bible or something, how would they know which page is toxified and which page is not? How would they know to choose these things? They wouldn't. Yeah, so they don't ever remain the beneficiaries of the Bible. People don't benefit from it because they don't know what it means. I do. And I'll release more information on that on the back of the series on psychology. And I will give you breathtaking examples of what I'm talking about. So if you're wondering, ladies and gentlemen, how the Supreme Court in Canada think that they can tell human men and women what to do, now you know how they're doing it. They're not giving orders to men and women, they're giving them to persons. That's why they said all persons. It always says all persons, and that's a persona, that's a corporate instrument. But people believe persons are human beings, and they think human beings are people. That's why you have these separate words, because they're all ways of expressing what is corporate, what is living under the color of title called human, and what is a man and a woman that has the ability to direct an entire government. That's why I can shut down human rights in less than 30 days, and they try to sell you individual rights. That's the power of a man. Yes, I have the education to go with it because I'm a Chief Federal Postal Court judge, as well as an educator called a plenipotentiary judge. We have successfully cast our memory back to periods in history where this has been perpetrated. If you want another further demonstration, just close your eyes and travel back to 2001 when the Bush family and Tony Blair in this country convinced everybody the Muslims are the enemies and got you believing and volunteering to go and kill Muslims in another continent. And then when it was all done and dusted, they said, we never said anything of the sort. It must be all in your imagination. And yes, it was all in your imagination, because they were speaking to corporate instruments about such lies that are called oxymorons, like the Omicron virus. Omicron means moronic. So when they tell you 80% of this state or that state is affected by Omicron, they're basically saying they have tested positive for stupidity, moronic. These are the codes in how they speak. What does a code mean? It means something that is written so you don't understand it. Otherwise, what's the point of having a code? In order to break a code, you need to what? What do you need to have? A cipher. Humans are given deciphers. Yeah? What's the decipher? What's the decipher for this code? That's human language. The language of men and women is that you need a cipher. Humans are given inheritage. In, as in incompetent, means no heritage. The aristocracy is given heritage societies without the prefix in. Hence, they get to own their titles. I've given you how your power of attorneys through your banks, they acquired your power of attorney and therefore your securities as the creditor for all of their nonsense making. You are actually the creditor for the Federal Reserve Bank. And they're using you as the securities. We can teach you, the Canadians who want to know these sort of things, we can teach you how to do that. But you have to come to us to withdraw that. If you cannot sack your government, then your government will sack your houses. They will sack your lives, your children, to pay off their cronyism. Because the entire system is built to set itself on fire. What does a lie beget? It begets another lie. And you have to tell so many lies that all the other lies will just simply burn up in the light of truth. That is how the Federal Reserve System is set up under a 99-year lease. And that lease has come to an end. I have told you how even the corporate instruments buy and sell your votes. In other words, another country can buy your votes. So let me paraphrase that for you. Let's imagine that you are US and you have signed an all powers of attorney because you got a mortgage. Let's imagine as an Eskimo that's got a few billion, wants to buy a few billion votes in America so I can choose what president should be in to represent my corporations, my companies. So I just simply buy all those votes, which is just an action of money. Since I can print off as much as that I can and flood your economy with it, I buy up your votes and put, say, whoever in power to act on my behalf for my companies. And that can be done by any country in the world. That's called an aggressive or a passive takeover, or even a consenting takeover. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, China can buy all of your votes. And they quite often do. The wars that they have is about such things. Shocking, isn't it? Eye-opening, is it not? Am I imagining all of these things, or is it following an absolute perfect logic of what I have said? I will give you the supporting evidence for it on this presentation. So the US note, ladies and gentlemen, as well as all the other notes, are going to be so devalued that they're going to become worthless in a matter of months to years. If you look back, even the last 3 years, it's already lost 30% of its value. Others say it's around about 45. The averages depends upon which items that you are using to buy these services with. If it's petrol, you've lost a lot of valuation in your dollar and pound. If it's food, definitely. If it's like cheap nonsense gear like fashion and things, it's quite cheap at the moment. So if you want to buy superficial things that add no value to your life, like a fashion, they make that very accessible. I think you understand how it works. You see, ladies and gentlemen, if you spoke to somebody about chemtrailing, they'll call you a conspiracy theorist, because they were programmed even in school about conspiracy theories. They have a curriculum in schools called the conspiracy theory. So they were preparing the children not to receive your words of wisdom from the parents. When they say, son, daughter, look at the skies, they are chemically trailing our planet to geoengineer it. Your children will turn around and say, oh, that's just a conspiracy theory, Dad. They've just washed you out. And you have to fight, and you have to fight to undo the resistance that your own children are throwing at you. Children, by the way, is a corporate instrument. That's why they got you naming your offsprings and your babies and your infants and so on and so forth as children, because corporations have children. Did you know that? Oh, shocking, isn't it? Horrible. But that's what that is. Persons have children. Your news, like the BBC, is fake news. Your governments that are called bureaucrats that you don't know anything about, yes, your government's called a bureaucrat and they're there to provide that service. Your government is there to steal that service from you and transmit it as a transmitting utility into the hands of the banks. The fraud is massive. So your government is fake. Your police are fake because there should be constables, peacekeeping constables. And they call them police officers, which are private security guards who have abdicated their oath of office to serve and protect, until you put them on a geometric level playing field under the penalty of perjury on their oath as men and women, and then watch them run away from you, because they know that they're now dealing with men and women. Your courts are fake, called the Admiralty courts, and you have been programmed to believe that the only courts are those men and women that wear black robes and conduct their affairs in that way. Well, what about the Federal Postal Court? Did you not hear about it? What about the Queen's Court or Queen's Bench, which means the Queen's banking system? Did you not hear about that court? Or the civil courts? No. Yeah. Or the mercantile courts? Didn't hear about those things, did you? Because they're the courts that deal with facts. For dead people, you go to the Admiralty courts, dealing with no value, with a single bar. Double bars go to a different court. We're factual courts. The rest are fictional courts. Your money system, as I've shown to you, is total and utter fake. And as I've shown you by 100, if not 1,000% proof again and again, as David Wayne Miller explained it, the language itself is fake. You have fake notes, fake bank notes, fake governments, fake courts, fake news, called media, all to prove that you are exposed and are the walking dead with death pledges hanging to your ankles. And that even your own children have been recorded as corporate instruments because that's what you volunteered to do so. Unfortunately, human beings are so far from anything factual, even these simple words would become extremely difficult for them to understand. The world, like the Canadians, are showing that through pain and effort, one has to stand up and be a man or a woman. You cannot do these things as corporate enterprises thinking that you are persons, individuals. Only men and women can just simply turn around, and which we are willing to share with you, to say F off to all of those people that are wanting to take your life energy away, called commercial energy. Here, ladies and gentlemen, is a man whom you know, written in all caps, as being listed, who've paid off every single penny of this home and is still listed as a joint tenant. This is a man that has paid everything off and owes nothing, and they've just kept him as a tenant. Your death pledge goes beyond just your own lifespan. It goes to your children as well. If you're a Christian, if you're a Muslim, if you're a Jew, if you're anything of a faith, you cannot live with such lies. And as long as you live with such lies, it's 100% proof again and again to the bankers and the governances of this planet that you are and willing participants in necromancy. Your power of attorney, and let's see if I can blow it up. I'll read it for you so you don't need to read it. A power of attorney is a legal document giving one person, not a man or woman, the agent, it's called the power of agency, or a power attorney in fact, which means he can govern your factual things in your life as well. That means the custody of gold, silver, copper, as well as Bitcoin. Yeah, you gave custody of your Bitcoin to him as well. You didn't know that? Well, you bloody well do now. The power to act for another person, the principal. You are the principal. You are the creditor. The agent can have broad legal authority. Broad legal authority. They call that in politics sweeping powers. Sweeping powers. Say it with me. Resonate that word with me. Sweeping powers. You gave them sweeping powers. Authority. How the hell can a corporation have authority unless you give it to them? Or limit authority, called a limited power of attorney, to make decisions about the principal's property, finance, or medical care. I will read that with you again if you have not understood the grotesqueness of this instrument that you've signed. A power of attorney, POA, is a legal document giving one person the agent or power in fact. Administer your facts, and Bitcoin is a fact, gold is a fact, silver is a fact, copper is a fact. You are a fact. The power to act for another person. In other words, they reduce you, and you have given yourself over to an actor called a person, persona. The principle. The value of a principle, as Thomas Carlyle said it, the value of a principle is the number of things it explains. The agent can have broad legal authority, called sweeping powers in politics, or limited authority, called a specific power of attorney, to make decisions about the principal's property. You are property. You are your property. Your offspring is your property. Finance, which is money, gold, silver, and copper, or medical care. You have given a lawyer, oh Lord Almighty, you have given a lawyer the power of attorney of making your medical choices for you, not even the bloody doctor. You understand, ladies and gentlemen, how gut-wrenching it must be for surgeons that want to do the right thing, for the Surgeon General wanting to do the right thing, or even the coroner's office that wants to do the correct thing by you, where you constantly are walking yourself into this level of stupidity. Look, the Canadians should not be spending so much time and energy just to tell their de facto government to F off. You guys need to make a collective effort to educate yourself on what you are doing to yourself. If I was incompetent to make decisions, I would give it to my beloved. And if I was to do that, if I couldn't do that, then I would give it to a physician that I trust. I would not give it to a goddamn lawyer, man. What the hell's the matter with you people? Sorry to attack you, but this is an all powers of attorney in Ireland. Because the Irish people, and to be very blunt and straightforward, because of their arrogance or their pride, they walk themselves into signing away their entire goddamn life and medical decision making to a corporate governance called Ireland, as opposed to their true land status, which is called EIRE. Era. If you don't know how to get away with these things, how to sack these things, your corporate governances out of the City of London will sack your entire country, as they've been doing so for over 100 years, or 99 years, I should say, because that's when the lease, that's how long the lease is. Canadians that have listened to this, you understand what I have shown you here? Let me read it for you the third time. The power of attorney, POA, is a legal document giving one person the agent or attorney in fact, which means they can see eye to eye with you on a geometric level playing field to make those decisions on and behalf of you. The power to act for another person, the principal. When you give something, you're giving your principal. That's like your word. The agents, or the agent, known as the power of agency, have broad legal authority. Broad legal authority. Do you know what a broad is? Let me show you. That's a broad, as far as my hand can stretch. In politics, we call it sweeping powers, or limited authority, called a specific power of attorney, to make decisions about the principal's property. That includes your lorries, your clothes, your DNA, the blood that flows in you, as well as the animals and the trees that are in your back garden. That is the sap that flows upwards. You gave even power over that, and hence they can tell you which tree to cut down and which tree not to cut down in your own backyard. And finances. That includes fiat currency, that includes factual currencies like gold, silver and copper for the purposes of confiscation, as well as monitoring your Bitcoin because it's a public ledger to take it off of you. The Federal Postal Court, for the third and last time, the Federal Postal Court can cancel out your debt. The Federal Postal Court throughout the world can aid the entire planet to swash the power of all powers of attorney, and we are willing to do that for the Canadians on a global scale as well. You have to come to us in your thousands and not in your half a dozen. Okay, I know that half a dozen people that want to come to us means a lot, but you need to come to us in thousands. Out of a population of millions and billions, if only half a dozen turn up, we're really not interested. I want to make that very clear. Yes, you people mean a lot, and we will aid you if need be, but you will be tested for psychopathy and narcissism. And above all other things, if you want to know why the horrors in your hospitals are taking place the way that they are, it's because you also signed away all medical decisions to be made on behalf of a lawyer. And guess what? A coroner can be a lawyer or with somebody with medical training or both. But 99% of the time, they're usually lawyers. In this country, they're called solicitors. Do you know what a solicitor is? Help me out. It's called prostitution. I think I have made myself very clear. There are many other documents I could have shown you, but I don't think I want to, because it should be very prominent enough for you to know that you essentially signed away your body, your DNA, all your finances, all of your property, whether that's external or internal, like a house, land, trees around your property, your crops, the animals that you may raise or may not raise. You gave away your principal. Yeah, you gave away your principal. You gave away your persona, that's your ability to act. And you also gave away attorney in fact. That's a very powerful word, attorney in fact. That means he is not acting for you. He really is the attorney for your family. Okay? And you don't even know who that is. We used to have what's known as family lawyers. Whatever happened to them? We used to have family doctors and physicians. Whatever happened to them? They had our power of attorney because they had our trust. Whatever happened to that? You gave all that away. Okay? it should be shocking, absolutely shocking, to know that you gave away your health. Just read it for yourself. Okay? Thank you very much for listening to me. I very much look forward to getting your emails. I do want to make it very clear you will be tested. And I want to make it very clear we have knowledge and we have the ability to deal with thousands of mortgages, debt cases all over the world, as well as provide aid if need be for those people that need it, especially those groups that matter. If you are, and I'm sorry to explain it in negative terms, if you are a narcissist or a psychopath, I would chew your head off because you'll be in a public domain. Okay? Previously, I was kind and hearted enough to allow these people into my life without knowing, but I've grown wiser and I've grown, having lost my shyness for it, I am more than willing to rip off their heads and show you what they really look like. So, in me, because I've experienced these things so much, everything that I'm saying to you is first-hand knowledge. Yes, it's first-hand knowledge, including squashing the power of attorney and etc. Thank you very much once again, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time, bye-bye.